BISP Solutions. I am Preeti, working as Oracle Fusion Functional Consultant. So in the series of this webinar where we are covering the configurations and setups related to account receivable module in the Oracle Fusion application. So these are the topics that we have already covered. In the first session of this webinar series, we have discussed the steps of the order to cash. Then we have discussed what are the roles that are required by the user to perform the tasks which are related to account receivable module in the Oracle Fusion application. Then we have discussed the creation of the standard invoice, credit memo and debit memo. Then in the second session of this webinar series, we have discussed the receipt creation, reversal receipt creation. Then we have discussed the debit memo receipt reversal. Then we have discussed the miscellaneous receipt creation. Then in the third session, we have discussed the creation of chargeback transaction when we have data in bulk of receipts. At that time, we use the spreadsheet to load the receipt in the application. Then we have discussed the reciprocal customer. In our today's session, we will cover three topics. First is cross-currency receipt configuration and process. Second is receipt write-off configuration. And third is customer refund configuration. So let's start with cross-currency receipt configuration and process. So if we are creating the transaction in one currency and we are receiving the payment of that transaction in the currency which is not the invoice currency, then in that case we have to do some configuration in the application so that it will allow the user to accept the payment in the currency which is not the invoice currency. First, we have to create the daily rates between two currencies. Then at the bank account level, we have to enable one checkbox that is for multi-currency transaction. So we will directly move to our application and we'll see how to configure the setup and what is the process of cross-currency receipt configuration. Let's log in with the user here. Our first step in the cross-currency receipt transactions, we have to create the daily rates. Say if we create the transaction in USD currency and we are receiving the payment of this invoice in the INR, at that time we have to create the conversion rates between the USD to INR currency. For creating the daily rates, you have to go to the setup and maintenance. Then in the setup area, you have to select the offering as financials, and in the search task bar, you have to search for the task that is manage daily rates. You can see on the screen we have a task that is manage daily rates. Click on it. In the first tab, you can see the rate type. So these are the type of the rates: corporate, fixed, period average, period end, reporting spot, USD pivot, user. And in the second tab you can see the daily rate tab, and here you have to search whether the conversion rates are available or not. If not, then you have to create one. In the from currency, you have to select the currency and to currency, that means in which the payment is received. So in our case, we are creating the transaction in the USD currency and we are receiving the payment in the INR currency. And here we have to put the date range. Let's take it as today's date and then click on search. So you can see here, this is the conversion rate. $1 is equal to 70.1607 INR. So the daily rate is already created in the application. Click on done. Our next configuration is that at the bank account level we have to enable one checkbox that is for multi-currency transactions. For that you have to search for the task that is manage bank accounts. So we will search the bank account with the legal entity name here. Click on search. So these are the bank accounts which are linked with this legal entity name. Let's check with the first bank account. Click on edit icon. And in the general tab, when you will scroll down, you will get one checkbox that is multi-currency account. When you will enable this checkbox, then only you will be able to accept the transaction in the multi-currency. If I will disable this checkbox, then system will not allow you to accept the payment in the currency which is other than invoice currency. So for accepting the payment in the foreign currency, you have to enable this checkbox. So it is already enabled. Now click on save and close. So for creating the cross currency receipt, you should create daily rates between two currencies, and also at bank account level you have to enable the checkbox which is available for multi-currency transactions. Now our next step is that we have to create the transaction in USD and we have to create the receipt in INR. For creating the transaction, we have to go to the navigator, and from navigator we have to go to the receivable workbench area. And under the receivable workbench area, you have to go to the billing area, go to task panel, and then click on create transaction. So while creating the invoice, we have to select the transaction class. So we are taking it as invoice. In the business unit, select your business unit name. In the transaction source, we are taking manual as transaction source, and the transaction type we are taking it as invoice. And now here you have to select the transaction date. By default, system is taking today's date, and here you can see the currency of this invoice. So as we have decided that we have to create the transaction in the USD currency, and we have to create receipt in the INR currency. So by default the system is taking USD currency as invoice currency, and here you have to select the customer name. Select the payment term. Let's take it as immediate. Search for the item here. Click on complete and close. So this is the transaction number. Click on OK here, and then go to the manage transaction. So this was a transaction created by us right now. Let's go to actions, and from actions click on view balance details. You can see here the original amount is 10,000 and the pending amount for this invoice is 10,000. Now this amount is in the USD currency, you can see here, and now we will create the receipt in the INR currency for this invoice. For that you have to go to the account receivable workbench area, click on this account receivable and then go to the task panel and click on create receipt. So receipt type is standard and this is the business unit name. Select the receipt method here. Let's check the daily rate available for the USD to INR currency. So it is 70.1607. So I have entered the amount in the INR currency. For that you have to select currency as INR, and you can see here it is converted into the USD currency. We have entered the amount in the INR currency, but the accounted amount is taking it into the USD currency. This is the receipt date, this is the accounting date, and this is the detail of the remittance bank. Now here you have to select the customer name, from which customer we are receiving this amount. Now click on submit and apply manually. So we have submitted this receipt and now we have to apply the open receivable to this receipt. For that you have to click on add open receivables. When you are searching for the transaction that you have created in another currency but you want to create the receipt in another currency, for that purpose you have to enable this checkbox, that is include cross currency transaction. Then you will be able to search the transaction. Now we have transaction number as well, so let's search the invoice with the transaction number. So in the receipt matched by transaction number, here you have to give the transaction number. So this is the invoice that we have created and now we are creating the receipt against this invoice. Click on add and then click on done. You can see here the amount due is 0 and the applied amount is 10,000. And here you can see the cross currency rate, as we have received the amount in the INR currency but we have created the transaction in the USD currency. The entered amount is 701,607. The currency is INR. Accounted amount is 10,000. Total applied amount is this, and there is no unapplied amount. Now click on save and then click on save and close. Again go to the manage receipts. Let's search it out with the customer name. So this was the receipt that we have created, and this is the invoice that we have applied against this receipt. Now click on save and close. Now let's go back to the transaction. For that we have to go to the billing workbench area. So I am searching it out with the transaction number. So this was the invoice that we have created. Click on this transaction number and let's go to the actions. From actions we will view the balance detail of this invoice. You can see here the original amount was 10,000 in the USD, and for this invoice we have created the receipt in the INR in currency, but you can see under the receipts that 10,000 is deducted and the balance amount is 0. So this is how you can create the cross currency receipt transaction in the application. So we have discussed our first topic for the day, and now let's move to the next topic for the day. So our next topic for the day is receipt write-off. So in case we have booked the over receipt against any invoice and that customer is not demanding for any refund, then at that time you have to write off those kind of receipts. For that we have to do some configuration in the application. So we will directly move to our application to see what are the configurations that we have to do in the application for the receipt write-off configuration and process. So first we have to set the limit for the receipt write-off in the receivable system options. Then we have to create the approval limit for the amounts, and under the manage receivable activity you have to create one activity for the write-off purpose. So we will directly move to our application and we'll see how to configure the setups for the receipt write-off. First configuration that we have to do for the receipt write-off purpose is that we have to go to the manage receivable system options. Go to the receivables, and under the receivable you have to go to the manage receivable system options. So you have to go to the cash processing tab, and here you have to give the range from write-off limit per receipt to write-off limit per receipt. So I'm taking it as let's take it the same range from -1,000 to 1,000, and then click on save and close. Now we have to set the approval limit. So user cannot provide self approval limit, so for that we have to log in with another user. So let's log out with the existing user, and let's log in with the another user. go to setup and maintenance, and in the setup area you have to select the offering as financials. Then here you have to search it out with the approval limit. So this is a task, click on it, and let's search it out with the username. And under the document type you have to select from these 3 document types. So we are searching for the approval limit for this user for receipt write-off. Let's search it out with this. Click on search. Click on this this approval limit. This is the username Casey Brown. The document type is receipt write-off, and this is the currency, and this is the minimum approval amount and the maximum approval amount. So with one combination we can only create one approval limit. So I am making the changes in the existing approval limit. Click on save and close. Now let's log out with this user, and let's log in with the user with which we are working. So we have configured these 2 tasks. Now next task is manage receivable activities. Go to the setup and maintenance, and here you have to search for the manage receivable activities. You can see the task on the screen. Click on it. Let's click on create icon. So you have to create receivable activity. And in the activity type you have to select receipt write-off activity type, and the activity GL account you have to search for it. So I am taking it as unapplied receipts. Click on OK here. And then click on save and close. Now click on save and close. So we have created the receivable activity for the write-off purpose. So we have configured all these 3 tasks. Now our next process is we have to create the transaction. The process is same that we have used for creating the transaction. Go to the billing workbench area. Go to the task panel, create transaction. This is the currency of this invoice, and here you have to give the customer name. Let's take it as ABC Consulting. Put the quantity here. So we have created the invoice for 455. Now click on complete and review. Go to actions and go to view balance details. So this is the pending amount, this is the invoice amount. So we have created one transaction with the amount 455, and this is the transaction number. Now we will create receipt, and also we will write off the amount. For that, go to the accounts receivable, and from task panel go to the create receipt. Select the receipt method here. So 455 was the invoice amount, and let's create the receipt for $460. What we will do, we will write off the remaining $5. Select the customer name here. Click on submit and apply manually. Click on add open receivables. Now search for the transaction that we have created. So this was a transaction which amounted to rupees 455. Click on add and then click on done. Now click on save. So we have created invoice for $455, and then we have booked the receipt for this invoice for $460. That means customer has paid to us $5 extra, and he does not require any refund for that. So in that case we will write off this receipt. Now how you will write off this receipt? For that, You have configured 3 setups in the application, and now you have to go to the actions. First of all, you can see here the unapplied amount is 5. Go to the actions, and from actions you have to go to the more option, and from more option you have to click on create write-off. You can select the write-off amount here. By default, system is taking the remaining balance amount, that is $5. This is the application date, this is the accounting date, and as I told you that we have to create the receivable activity. So here you have to select the receivable activity, that is customer receipt write-off that we have created now. Now click on OK and click on save and close. Again go to the manage receipts. Search it out with the customer's name. Click on search. Then click on this receipt number. And you can see here, this is the amount that we have adjusted against the transaction invoice, and this is the amount that we have write off for this receipt. Click on save and close. Move back to the transaction workbench area. So this is the invoice that we have created. Go to actions, and from actions go to view balance details. You can see here the original amount is $455 and the receipt that we have booked against this invoice is $455, and the remaining $5 we write off. So in this way you can write off the receipts. So we are done for second task for today, and let's move to the next task, that is customer refund configuration and process. So in case the customer has paid the extra amount to us and he wants refund in that case, or you can also say that there is some sales return against which your customer requires refund, or the customer have cancelled the services. In that case also you have to provide the refund to your customer. So for customer refund purpose you have to do some configurations and in the application. So let's move to the application, and we'll do the required configuration in the application. So these are the 3 same tasks that we have did for the receipt write-off. Now we have to do it for the refund configuration. Move to the application, then go to the receivable system options. Go to the receivable area. Now here you have to give the minimum refund amount. Cash, go to cash processing, and you can see here minimum refund amount is $5. It means if it is less than $5 the refund will not process. If it is more than $5 then only it will process. So we are taking it as $5. Click on save and close. Again we have to log in with the different user, as we have to set the approval limit. Go to the setup and maintenance. Search for the task that is manage approval limits. And let's search with the username whether the approval limit is already created for this user. And in the document type we have to select credit memo refund. Click on search here, and let's check with your currency. So we are dealing in USD currency. So I have changed the limit, as I have told you that for one document type we can only create one approval limit with one user. Now click on save and close. So this is the username, this is the document type, this is the currency, and this is the minimum approval limit, and this is the maximum approval limit. Click on save and close, and let's log out with this user. And let's move to the third configuration task, that is manage receivable activity. So we have to create one activity for the refund purpose also. You can see the task on the screen, that is manage receivables activities. So let's create one. In the activity type, let's take it as refund, and let's provide the account for the refund. So let's take it miscellaneous account for practice purpose, as we are not able to see any refund account available right now. Click on OK, and we have provided the activity GL account. This is the activity type, and we have provided the name for this receivable activity. Click on save and close. Okay, so we already have receivable activity for this business unit. Click on cancel here. So this is the receivable activity which is already available. So we will use this while creating the transactions. Click on save and close. So I've already showed you how to create the receivable activity. In the same way, you can create the receivable activity for your business requirement. So we have configured all these 3 tasks. Now our next step is that we have to create the transaction. Again, we have to follow the same process that we have used for creating the transactions. Go to task panel and then click on create transactions. Give the customer name here. In the payment term, I am taking it as immediate. So I have created the invoice for $790. Let's click on complete and review. Go to actions and then view the balance. You can see here the pending amount is $790 and the invoice amount is $790. Click on done and then click on save and close. Now click on OK. Let's note down this transaction number. Go to the receivable workbench area now and we will create the receipt. Go to task panel and then click on create receipt. Select the receipt method here. So we have created the invoice for $790 and now I'm creating the receipt for $800 and $10 we will refund to our customer. This is the receipt date, this is the accounting date. Select the customer name here. Click on submit and apply manually. Let's click on add open receivables. Here you will be able to see all those receivables which are pending for payment. Click on search. And this is the transaction that we have created now. Click on add and then click on done. Click on save here and now come back to the actions menu, and from actions menu you have to click on this more. You can see here the unapplied amount is $10 and in this case Our customer required the refund for the $10 that he have paid in extra. Now click on actions, then go to the more option, and under the more you will find out the option that is issue refund. Click on this issue refund. Now here it will ask you for the refund amount. So this is the refund amount that system is taking by default, that is $10. This is the customer party name, this is the party number, and here you have to mention the party site. Here the system will ask you refund payment method. Let's take it as check, and now click on OK. You can see the refund of 10 and the receipt of $790. Now click on save. Then click on save and close. Again go to the manage receipt option. Click on this receipt number and scroll little down. This is the transaction against which we have recorded the receipt, and this is the refund amount, that is $10. Now click on save and close. So we have to issue the refund, and we have already issued the refund for $10. Now we have to go to the payables workbench area. From there you will pay the amount of this $10 to our customer, and now you will see that the invoice is automatically generated by the system. Now in the recent invoices you have to click. You can see here this is the $10 for which system has automatically generated the invoice. Click on this invoice number. We only have to check, and then we have to make the payment for this invoice to our customer. So this invoice is already validated. You can see here the business unit name, the party name, the date of the invoice, and this is the amount. This is validated, and now go to the invoice actions and click on pay in full. From here you will make the payment to the customer for the $10. Select the payment process profile and then click on submit. So you can see the message on the screen, that is payment for $10 has been created. Now click on OK and then click on save and close. So the time and payment request. So in this way you can issue the refund, and when you select issue refund, it will automatically create one invoice in the payables, and from payables you have to verify the invoice, and then from there you have to create a payment. Let's check the balance for the invoice for which we have issued the refund. to actions and then go to view balance details. You can see here the original amount was 790 for this invoice, and then we have created the receipt against this invoice, that is 790. The actual receipt was 800 for $10. For remaining $10 we have issued the refund. For that refund, the system has automatically generated the payable invoice, and you have to check and verify that payable invoice, and you have to make the payment from the payables workbench area. So in today's session we discussed the cross currency configurations, then we have discussed the receipt write-off configuration, and in the end we have discussed the customer refund configurations. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for joining this session. Have a good day.